So here's your talk for 8.4. This gets summed up in one sentence. Okay? The maximum, minimum of a function f of x is ax squared plus bx plus c. Is above x is negative b over 2a. Okay. This is really all there is for section 8.4, because we've talked about all the other things in 8.4. The other things are, we should consider stuff like what we apply the quadratic formula to, right? When it's not equal to 0, but when it's actually a function rule, right? Then we should think about those as functions. Okay, great. We should call them quadratic functions. Sure, whatever. Right? You can apply the quadratic formula to them. They're probably quadratic functions. And then there's this weird business about a max or a minimum and this spot that it happens. What's going on with that? How about, could I draw a picture?
Isn't that the vertex?
Oh yeah, I might look at maximum and minimum. Another way to think about that would be to think the word vertex. The vertex of what? Oh yeah, this thing's a parabola, right? You guys all recognize that? It's shifted around a bit maybe, flipped over maybe, but it's still a parabola. So it looks something like this, right? Or I suppose maybe upside down, right? Does it really matter? No, it's still got a vertex. That vertex is this thing, right? You guys all see that? That kind of high point or low point. And that really sits here above x is negative b over 2a. You guys want a reason for this? Where have you seen this negative b over 2a business before? Yeah, a quadratic formula, right? So if you kind of thought to yourself, okay, what if I start out with this f of x and I set it equal to 0? You guys see that? So that's me looking for these two x values, right? You guys see that? That's really what it means to set this thing equal to 0. I'm wondering, where does this function give 0 as an output, right? So those spots where it gives 0 as an output are the spots where it crosses the x-axis. You guys cool with that? Okay, and then we solve, right? How do we solve this? Okay, I'd label A, B, and C, right? They're A, B, and C.
All the values of quadratic formula.
Yeah, and then I'd shove them in the quadratic formula, right? So the quadratic formula tells me those two green points are given by x is negative b plus or minus some stuff over 2a, right? I don't really even care what this stuff is right now. It's b squared minus 4ac, but whatever. The important thing is that this looks like negative b over 2a plus or minus some number. Okay, see that? That's my two green dots. So what does that mean? That means in the middle is negative b over 2a. You guys all see that? That's really me thinking, okay, this distance is that funny number, and this distance is also that funny number. And I've done a poor job with my picture here because it's not symmetrical. You guys see that? But really, that's all there is. Cool with that? No? No. You want an example? Okay. To quickly modify something out of section 7.4, there's one of these problems that says there's a profit function. So here I'm thinking this thing takes x's and turns them into p of x's, right? I'm going to think this is profit, and I'm going to think this is whatever kind of thing I'm making. So widgets, I think is the traditional whatever the hell you're making. You guys all see this? So I've got some profit function, and it happens to be negative x minus 60 times x minus 10. You guys see that? This is number 17, I think, out of 7.4. Whatever. I got some profit function. What does this tell me? I want to know when my profit's maximized, right? Does that all make sense? Okay, so let's see. This is a parabola, right? You guys all see that? If I FOILed it out, I'd get a squared term, and then some x's, and then some numbers. What's the minus tell you? It's pointed down. So I'm looking for a downward-facing parabola, and where does it hit the x-axis? In other words, if I set this equal to 0, what would I get? Okay, let's set this equal to 0 and see what we get. So I've got negative x minus 60 times x minus 10 equals 0. This is me wondering what my break-even values are, right?
60 and 10.
How'd you get 60 and 10?
Set each term to 0.
Yeah, we set this equal to 0, and then we use the zero product rule on it, right? So the zero product rule would tell us we've got either x minus 60 is 0, or x minus 10 is 0. I don't know why I put parentheses 0. Or maybe negative 1 is 0. That one doesn't make any sense, right?
And then a negative sign.
Yeah, there's really this negative sign on here. Maybe if I was being totally honest, I'd write that down. Is that true ever? No. You can cross that one out. And then, how do I solve these two?
Add the numbers to each side.
Yeah, I just add the numbers to each side. So I add 60 to this one, I get x is 60. Or on this one, I add 10, I get x is 10. You guys playing along with this? Okay, so those are the x-intercepts. So here's 10, there's 60, and it's a downward-facing parabola, right? So it looks like this. Wait, what? The parabola is facing down because of this minus sign. If I FOILed this whole thing out, right, my x squared term would have a negative on it. That means I'm looking down. Okay, so I want to find the middle of this thing. Should be halfway between the zeros, right? So what's halfway between 10 and 60? Okay, how about this? How far apart are 10 and 60? 50, maybe? So half of 50 is 25, and then that means halfway between 10 and 60 is 35. Right, that's this distance is 25. And so in here is my middle at 35. Okay, see that? So maximum profit is achieved by making 35 widgets. You guys all see that? This was kind of the long way, though. I did some stuff to get here. The original problem here is phrased as, I've got minus x squared plus 70x minus 600. So if I want to find out the maximum, I could just, instead of going through all this rigmarole, right, if all I'm interested in is what's the maximum, I can use my new tool, right? The maximum's above x is negative b over 2a. So what's negative b over 2a here? So I'm looking at negative 70 over
2 times negative 1.
twice negative 1. You see I get my same 35.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to go through all the trouble of, okay, what are the two zeros? What's halfway in between them? Cool. So this is the only new thing in 8.4 is just this max-min thing is above this middle point. The cool thing about this is that this also works if this, oh, I erased it. If this plus or minus a number, if that thing has a negative under a square root in there, it still works. In other words, if it doesn't hit the x-axis at all, right? I kind of lied to you. I said it looks like this or flipped over, right? Well, it could certainly look like this, right? That minimum still occurs in the same place.
You're just not asking for the roots.
Yeah, I don't have to find the roots. I just want to know about the middle. The middle's at this spot, regardless of what the plus and minus are. Cool? That's kind of a deep thing, right? Questions about this? No?